right, thank you very much, and we welcome you to this special call board meeting on this January the 27th, 2022. And at this time, I'd like to let you know that all board members and the superintendent are present. And at this time, I will call the meeting to order. And as we do that, would you join me, please, in a moment of silence? Thank you very much. If you're able, if you stand with me, join me, and we say the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Item C is to adopt agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Dr. Lamb made the motion to adopt the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. McQuarrie seconded. All in favor, let me know by lifted hand. All board members were in favor. The agenda is adopted. Item 2 is communications. And any board members have anything they'd like to share? We're going to be sharing a lot here in a little bit, aren't we? All right. Item B is Superintendent. Mr. Stull, do you have anything you'd like to share?
I think I'm good, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, we come to the action agenda then. And under the action agenda, item A is to approve a request to KBE and KDE to waive the 2008 Kentucky School Facilities Planning Manual for completion of the Garrard County High School project.
So if I can, I'll walk you through briefly what this request is for. Most of you know that the Kentucky Department of Education has announced recently that restricted funds cannot be used for athletic construction. Thankfully, the Garrard County Board of Education in 2015 got KDE on board and had them approve a facilities plan that allowed you to list your athletic facilities at the high school that were not completed as a priority one. Since KDE approved that, after the decision was made no longer to allow that to occur, we contacted the commissioner, pointed out to him that there had already been an approval from KDE and requested a waiver. They put in place a waiver process. I think it's going to impact 2 school districts, Garrard County being one of them. On February the 9th, the Kentucky Board of Education will meet and will review our waiver request. We believe that they're going to approve that, and if they do, that will allow you to use restricted funds for athletic projects to complete the high school. Won't allow you to do that in the future. Will allow you to do it for the high school project because it's a completion. So in order for that to happen, I need the board to make a motion that recommends the request to waive the 2008 Kentucky School Facilities Planning Manual incorporated by reference in 702 KAR 4180 for completion of the high school project. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that they will approve that.
All right, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Hart made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Davis seconded. Any comments or questions from any board member? All in favor, let me know by lifting hand. All board members were in favor, and the request for the waiver is approved. Item B is what I think most of you are here for tonight, is to approve construction renovation project priorities. I have struggled with the best way for us to approach this, and I placed on each one of your desks, there's a little half sheet. So to get us started tonight, if you haven't done this already, I want you from 1, 2, 3, and 4 to put your list of priorities. And we'll start our discussion there.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is it wise to have your priorities before you realize how much or decide how much you're going to spend?
Well, we'll see.
You know, it's like going to the grocery store with $15 in your pocket and had a list for $115. do we need to kind of decide how much money we're gonna spend before we start listing priorities? I have what I think need to be the priorities listed, and the dollar amount attributed to them.
That,
But it comes up to one figure. But
well,
if I went through and did a whole wish list, we probably don't have enough bonding protection.
oh, no, the whole thing comes to over $80 million. We did everything,
How much?
80 million.
And we have the ability to pay for that.
No, we do not. That's why I want,
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. We started out, when we first started discussing this building project and what we wanted to do, and I think we all agreed we wanted to do some building and do some finishing up things and some repair on existing buildings. And the figure that jumped up from the bonding potential we had at that time was about $26 million, if I remember correctly. And we had decided that, I don't think we ever took a vote, but from discussions around, we had a figure of about $20 million. More or less, with a little wiggle room.
did you all get the,
But there's nothing, I don't think any of us are gonna have a list that's gonna say that listing their priorities is gonna come in anywhere close to 20 million.
oh, no.
So, you know, it helps to make an estimate of what's realistic and what you'd like to have if you know how much you got to spend before you make the estimate. Of course, I made one in the blind. Mine came out over 20 million by a bunch.
So on your, if you don't care,
No, please.
so on your screen right now, you have what Kelly presented to you last week. And what she presented was current fiscal year revenues and then a projection for 2023. The estimation was that you would not be doing bonding until then. So in that estimation, what she has added to it is the updated FSPK, which moves from 458 per student to 508. And then she's added in the equalization of the third nickel. She knows that there's a cap on that nickel that ends in 2038, and she's considered that as she walked through it. So she set last week for you an idea of 41 million at a 20-year bond and a 49 million at a 25-year bond.
So that's the number. I just assumed that you had seen this.
Oh, yeah, I knew the figures, but I knew that the board had never really decided how much they were willing to spend. It's not how much you can spend, it's how much you're willing to spend.
And
Or if they
that's-
decided that, I don't think we've ever decided that we want to spend the whole $41 million.
Well, that's what we're gonna decide tonight.
Yeah.
So that's
Do you want
why,
to decide how much of that you're going to spend
well,
before your priorities or after your priorities? Not being argumentative, just asking a question.
well, just give me your top 4 priorities, and then we're gonna add them up, and then you give them to me. And then like if 3 of us want this, or 4 want that, or whatever, and that'll give us an idea of how the board's thinking about things.
Let me ask you a question. When you're talking about give the 4 priorities, are you talking about like option 1, 2, 3, 4?
Option 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
If I can interject, I think what we're asking for is if you look at the list and it's on there, and I hope it's coming up here in just a second, it should be in front of you. You have a list of all the projects that were a piece of the master plan, which you approved last week. That includes site prep, athletic complex, gym and instruction, other athletics and bus garage. Then underneath that, you have each of the schools and projects that could occur there. So if I'm understanding you right, what he is suggesting is if you wanted to do anything at the high school, you have to include the site prep.
Oh,
There's
yes.
nothing that can be done without the site prep.
The
Okay?
4.7.
So I would suggest that if you're going to have anything to do at the high school, that's priority number 1 is site prep, because you can't do anything else. If your next decision is the athletic complex, then you put that as number 2. If you have nothing else that you want to do at the high school, then you move to the next list at Lancaster or wherever. So it could be possible for you to select 4 items from the site or the master plan site, or you could pick 5 items from some other location, I think, or 4 items. I think
Oh,
that's
sure.
where you're starting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's where we're starting.
That's surprising. That's exactly what I did.
Really?
I guess I'll start off. Do you want
Well, why
I
don't you
can
just
do
put
that.
it on a piece of paper and if you give it to me and then I'll just kind of add them up and I'll share where we are and then we can have our discussion. Or do y'all want to do it a different way?
Let's just discuss.
You want to just discuss it? All right. Who wants to start?
Wait, Mike.
Okay. Well, I listed it down and tried to be specific about it. 4 priorities, lumped all those existing schools. Camp Dick, Garrard Middle, ATC Building, GEC, Lancaster Elementary. And I think that's that. And then phase 1 and 2 and additional athletics at the high school. So you got at Camp Dick, not the whole thing, because I split it out into the things I thought might be the most needed on all of them. And Camp Dick roof repair, which we know your roof leaks, you got trouble all over the building, so that's one thing I think is a priority. At Camp Dick, roof repair and restrooms comes to about 1.1 million plus a 30% soft cost, which I don't think it'll be.
Oh, okay,
So what I'm doing right now is carrying them over from what you're suggesting into a column that'll give us a total for what you came up with, and I've
Okay,
included
so
the
I don't
soft
need a
cost.
total, I'll just tell you what,
I've got the soft cost figured
yeah.
out.
And I believe the soft cost will come in less than 30%. They should come in less than 30%. We hope they will. Garrard Middle, restroom restoration and repair and what needs to be done there. Glazing the doors. Glazing of the outside windows and the doors and security. Because they do have some issues with the doors there.
Okay.
They came to about 1.3 in my figures and plus the soft cost. ATC, roof and security and improvements in the office area, I think were the 3 things. That came to about 555,000 plus 30%. My figures. GEC restrooms, those restrooms haven't been, they've had maintenance work on, but as far as you know, they're 30 years old. About any school with the wear and tear they get on them every day, restrooms are pretty much a priority. Doors, security, and the roof. That came to about 1.1 million plus 30%. The way I figured it. Lancaster Elementary. Restrooms, glazing the windows, and possible replacement roof, door and hardware, and HVAC. That came to 4.5 million plus 30%. You get into the window replacement, it might be more. And for that phase, or you call that number 1 priority or whatever, came to 8.9 million plus 30%.
Would you tell me again?
More
what you had
or
at-
less, that's just my,
Yeah, tell me again what you had at Lancaster. I think I missed one.
okay, it's the restrooms.
Mhm.
I think the glazing and repair windows,
Uh-huh.
the roof, and door and hardware, and HVAC. That's what drove it up. The HVAC drove it up considerably more there, but it's also a need. There's some other things that are in need, but I think this costs are low enough that possibly we can come up with some discretionary money somewhere to do other odd jobs on any of them that pop up.
So you're 10.8 with the figures, with the 30% calculated in.
Well, that's even better than I thought, because I came up with 11.5, so I must have figured a little high.
Or I've missed one, so that's a possibility.
Well, but we're ballpark. And that's, not necessarily that they all have to be done one thing in the first priority. They could be, I hope, talking to Mr. Samacar, Brad, that they don't have opposition to operating and doing construction in 2 or 3 different projects at once, you know, a roof here and a restrooms and stuff in another building, whatever. It's, you're gonna bid them in a package anyway.
You just tell us what you want to do.
And it
We'll
won't
do it.
increase the soft cost or decrease the soft cost, because you're gonna have to do it anyway. So, that's that amount of money. And then, the next phase is phase 1 and 2 at the high school and the additional athletics, and that came to 16.84 million.
Okay, so you'll have to walk me through that. You did the
Okay.
site prep, correct?
The site prep is figured in phase 2, I think. Well, one of them is 3.61. That may be the site prep. My detail note.
4.7 is,
So I've got it, I think.
oh,
Yeah. And then, phase 2 was 9.93 million, and the additional athletics was 3.3 million. Came 16.84 million. Add them 2 together and it comes to 28 million. .41. So 28,410,000.
So I've got you at 32,685,000.
Figured one low and one high, so I guess.
Okay.
That's,
okay,
so there, that's,
okay. Who's next?
Okay.
Okay,
Seeing, Mr. Brown here makes me think back as when, Garrett County High School was first built, and that board had the vision to build a new school, but because of financial difficulties, weren't able to complete it. And I feel like it's our obligation is to complete something we started. And we know that we're short several things at the high school. So I'm looking at going with the completion of the high school, which would include a site prep, which would include the athletic complex of $12,900,000, which would include the gymnasium, $21 million, which would include the baseball, softball, and tennis facilities at $4,286,100. And that those together would come to $42,886,100. Then based on I'm looking at the $49 million possibilities. That would allow us to have some flexibility to do projects at the other schools and or include the bus garage into that as well. But I feel like if we don't complete the high school now and we use these monies, then our bonding capability will never become again within our lifetimes of finishing these projects. And I think we need to do what we need to do. And I believe that's the reason why we see several people here today, because they're very interested in us completing the projects. With what a lot of people don't think about is in these projects, every kid, even they start in first grade and they complete it and goes to the school, going to come to the high school, through whatever program, extracurricular activity, or whatever we have. And as the educators that are here will know, the best dropout prevention programs going are extracurricular activities and any type of extra activity we have, band, football, basketball, anything academics. When kids are involved, they have more of an opportunity to stay and to graduate. I want to make Garrard County a place where people envy. They want to come here. Hey, I might come to Garrard County High School because I would like to play at that stadium, or I'd like to march on that field, or I'd like to participate in that gym. So I want us to be envied by other people and not let us sit back and envy what other people are doing.
okay, thank you, sir. Who's next?
Well, I'll bring it back to this side of the room. So I'd like to first say that what I want is completely irrelevant to this conversation because it's not about me and what I want. It's about trying to figure out how to take what we've got and do the very best that we can for our school district. And so I have found this to be a very challenging decision, and we're not even close to being done with it, but it's a very challenging time for us as board members. But I do think we have an obligation to finish what we started, and that is to finish our high school facilities and to make them the best that we can make them. But we've also got schools in our district that are 30 plus years old and they haven't had the 15-year renovation, and they didn't get, now they're ready for the 30-year renovation that the board expects that we're going to do to maintain our facilities. And so we've got some schools that are in desperate need of attention. And so I personally feel like that we have to try to be good stewards of the resources and do something for those buildings that we know have major problems too. And so I've tried to take everything that I know about those buildings and everything that I know about what we need at the high school and come up with what I think represents what our community is asked for. And so my number one is to fix Lancaster Elementary, particularly the windows and the door issues. And so it bothers me greatly that we have a school that our kids can't see out of. The windows are so cloudy and gray, and Brad explained to me what that problem was, but it had something to do with window seals breaking and gases leaking out or something, I don't know. But regardless, we've got kids in a school that can't even see out the windows. That's not okay by me. And so that, because the environment in which we teach is critical. It's so important. We cannot neglect that building another round of bonding potential and skip over that. So that's my number one, is to make Lancaster Elementary a little bit friendlier to our students. My number two is to try to go back and finish what we started at the high school. So obviously we have to do our site prep, and that lays the groundwork for all the projects that we know need to be finished there. And then if, based on what I think I heard from the community when we had our community forums, the high school athletic complex, because we don't have track and field, and we don't have a place for our band. And so the athletic complex would give us something that we don't already have in the community. So what we've got, we'd like to have better. We know that. We want the other projects done at the high school. But my number two is the athletic complex. And then we need a security vestibule in this building. We now have this building occupied by a fair number of preschoolers. So we have students in this building and we don't have a security vestibule. That bothers me. We fixed the doors, we made them safe, but we still need a security vestibule to be the safest space possible for our little kids that we've got coming. And we know how important they are because they're eventually going to grow up and want to come to a high school that has a full athletic complex to it. So that's my number three, is the GEC security vestibule. And I understand that we've got buckets collecting rainwater out at CDR because a shingled roof has not been able to be patched sufficiently. And so if we got kids walking around buckets of rainwater, we've got problems in our district that we should not have. So my number four is to fix the roof at the CDR. And if I could do everything on this list and make it happen, I would, but unfortunately, I can't pull blood out of a turnip. So there you go.
The first comes to
$19,274,000.
Okay, I guess we're ping ponging back and forth, so it's my turn. I looked at this a little bit differently. First of all, I want to thank Brad, and we're sort of talking about the other Brad and our Brad. Or if I were still teaching, it would be Brad B and Brad A. For the nice presentation last week and how you broke everything down from the schools. I really appreciated that. And as I've worked and studied on making a decision, I've really utilized that information. I looked at it a little bit differently in that not only were we to make a decision for tonight, I was looking at the long-range plan. So I've asked a lot of questions. I've talked to several people. So I know you're all going to be glad this meeting's over with, so I'll leave you alone. But I gave a lot of thought to what bonding means. And when I started going through a lot of the things under the schools, and they weren't a lot of money, I'm thinking, do we want to bond that and be paying for that over the years? If we can pay for it someplace else. And my big picture was to look at everything that was presented that night, knowing that it's all going to take time, and no, we do not have that amount of money. However, because we have waited and we're so close to July the 1st, I had in my mind to use I was using 46.7. It's better tonight. It keeps getting better. Maybe we should keep coming back. But I was sort of using the 46.7 million that we would have started July the 1st. So with that thought process, unless we bundled things at the schools, and we could, or if we bundled a like project through the other schools, with all the schools, I was thinking that possibly we could use other funds, and we will have other bonding potential. According to the information we received from Kelly, in 2 more years, we'll have the ability to bond a little bit more, 2 more years, a little bit more, a little bit more. So it's going to spread some things out, and everything's going to take time. I also understand, and I'm going to bring this up, if I shouldn't, I guess you can tell me not to, but I understand that we have some one-time money this year that can start some of these projects. And I had gone through, and those have been mentioned, the windows at Lancaster Elementary, the safety vestibule at ACC and GEC. Those are some things we can knock out this summer and get them off the plate and not have to go into bonding, so that we can use our bonding money for the big things that do take time. And I know there's some concern in our community. We're an agrarian community, and a lot of people don't believe in making payments and bonding and things lasting 20 and 25 years. But the only way you're going to get these big projects, the only way we've had our schools, is to make payments. So I was trying to get the big things with the bonding. We're blessed that people had the foresight in the past to pass the green nickels. The state is now equalizing that, and we have some things that have come our way in Garrard County that are once in a lifetime. That's why we have the opportunity to bond over $40 million. That will not ever happen again, or not in our lifetime. It may never happen again, but to my knowledge, will never happen again. I think to be good stewards is to be able to utilize that money to the fullest. I'm not saying use it all 49 million, but to use that, it's for our kids, because that's who we're here for. Saying all that, I would like to see us finish the high school. This is a fun time in a way, being from Garrard County, going into the new high school when now the middle school was built was a fun time. It was fun to build a new high school and to hear that conversation and to know the thought process and the questions of whether that was a good decision. Because of working with Mr. Woolsey at that time, he worried, was that a good way to go with our funding? Should we build a new high school? Should we build a new elementary school? At that time, we were thinking about building another elementary school at Camden. What should we do? And it was a big decision, and people on the board, and Joe being here, I don't know if you were here during that time on the board, but it was just such a big decision. And yet it's hung over our head that we have not finished that. I'm talking too much. I need to stop, but I can't stop. I've got to finish this. I said I've had too much shopping today, I guess. Anyway, so I would like to see us do the site prep, do the athletic complex, do the gym, do the other athletics. And that comes to 42.8, and finish the high school as our dream was in 2010, or not really 2010. All this prep work starts years before. So that was the dream. And we hit the recession. and things just sort of went backwards. So I would like to see that. That would be a good portion. Now, I say that not wanting to take away anything that needs to be done in the schools. And really, if we could get the bus garage in there, I would love to do that as well. And that would get us up to about 45.8. But and tonight, my understanding is we are to give you all direction on what direction to go to prepare for the bidding. And so I would say, let's do everything. I mean, my suggestion would be everything at the high school. If we could tack on the bus garage and have that ready in case bids come in a little bit lower or whatever, we could be ready to go with it. Now, that too, and I'm saying we have some money available to start this year, this summer with some things, and we can go and start knocking some of these things out this summer. It's not going to be a large amount. It's one-time money, and we know that. But go on, and then there are things all through the years. We talked about gym floors. Well, we always took our turn to have the gym floors done. Being in the smallest school, Paisley was last, but that was okay. We got it done. And we were used to taking turns. So things get done over time. And there are some things that can't wait. And that's why this one-time money, I hope we can go on and get started with that. Now we don't have to bond it. So that gives our bonding money back to the big projects. Then, as I said, in 2 more years, we have a little bit more bonding capability, and then we can start putting that into our schools with what they need as we do things along through the years as well. So I didn't do 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's all right.
I just said I think we need to finish the high school. If we get the bus garage in there, I think that's wonderful. But I'm also saying I'm in favor of doing that as long as we could start some of these other things with this pot of money that we have and start working in the schools to take away the list, to do some things that are under $1 million. Some of us even under 500,000. And we wouldn't have to bond and get that done because we could probably, going through this process of bonding is new to me, so I've asked a lot of questions about that. I know I've been on the end of receiving all of it, but I really haven't been involved in the process of getting there. So I just like to use the bonding money as much as possible, as I said, for the big things. And then there's other things we can be done quicker and sometimes cheaper, because I don't know that there is a procedure to go through, but we don't always have to do the same kind of bidding. So that's where I stand, and I've rambled, but thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is what we were originally going to do. Isn't it?
It is.
But we feared that maybe some board members wouldn't be comfortable with it, so anyway, that's fine. Well, that's pretty much where I am as well. I've wrestled with this, and I've been on the board since 2004. And I came on the board, the decision had been made to build a new high school, and my first assignment, I remember, thank you, Joe, was on board representative on the site selection committee. In fact, Mr. Hurd and I served on that committee. He was one of the community folks that served on that committee. And so we were excited. It was a board decision. We didn't always agree on everything, but once a decision was made, it was a board decision. And so we went with, 2008. Who could have thought the bottom would have dropped out in 2008? And we lost our bonding potential. We had it set up in phase 1, 2, and 3. And we only got to do part of, I think, phase 2, I think, didn't we? Was part of it. All I've heard from people in the community is, when are we going to finish the high school? And I too would like to use our bonding potential to finish the high school. And I know that's a high number, but according to Kelly Mercick's figures that she shared with us, we can do this with the community not worrying about us having to raise taxes to pay for it. And we did promise the community in those community meetings that we had that this board is not going to raise taxes. And so I too would like to complete the high school. I have been a proponent, and I think, Mr. McCray, you have too, of the bus garage. If any of you have ever been at our bus garage, if you haven't been there, I encourage you to go and see what our folks have to work in. And I go by once a month, to each one of the schools, I go by the bus garage and so forth, and they have told me, and bless their hearts, I appreciate this, that if you can't build a new bus garage, we'd rather see the gym and athletic facilities. If you just fix the roof,
We must have been talking to different people.
really.
Well, I didn't hear that.
You didn't hear that?
No.
Yeah, that's what they shared with me. But I applaud them for that. But as Ms. Davis so eloquently shared, there are some monies that will be available to do some of these other projects. And before the meeting, we grilled you pretty good, didn't we? And you shared with us, I think, that when the bid packages go out, and if they come back for less, we can add, would you explain about the BG1?
So what was I asked before the meeting was timeline and how the BG1 process worked. And explained that we can write the BG1 in such a way that it can be kind of almost an open-ended. It's high school, I think what's labeled on the DFP is high school phase or final phase, what we'd call it, high school final phase and district facility projects. And we could basically, by having you on, what we asked for was this list of projects. Is you list those first few projects that we can go ahead and get started on and get you better numbers on what those prices are going to be. And that gets us out of schematic design and more into design development. That's when we can turn back good, strong, ready to bid kind of numbers to you. And then you can decide to move on to that next project. And it would slide into that BG1. Then we get the numbers on it, and then you add the next one in until you get to that number where you're comfortable at. So that as our numbers, as we talked about last week, these are budgeting numbers. As those numbers actually become real numbers, our intent is, our hope is that they shrink. And then you're going to realize that there's more money there to be spent that y'all can spend on other projects as we go through this. But we just need to get started on a list or a priority. And as we start going down that, so we'll open that BG1 up so that you district facilities, and then we can go out and touch one single thing at one school or multiple things at multiple schools. We can pull those things in as we need to.
Will BG1s as in plural, each site, each project would have its own BG1. You're not going to do one big BG1 for the whole thing. So you'll file a BG1 for each project as you go. That way you can actually close the projects out. And when that priority list is set, depending upon, once you bid the first project, you'll have a better idea about the second project. Second project bids may change what you might want to do on your third project, once you see how much money you have. So you just got to, it can all be fluid and can be changed as you go. But I spoke with Kelly this morning and I said, I don't know what's going to happen. And she said, whatever happens, go. Just as quick as you can, because a couple things that are inflation is eating away what you can build.
I think we need to get started. I understand there's a possibility we might have the first interest raise even in March. We need to go on, get going, because that'll hurt us. And, if by bidding or by bonding some of these, and I'm just going to take the Lancaster Elementary windows because that came up in the town meeting. It has been a concern of all of us. If we have to wait to go through the bonding process, and that's just going to put that off. It's going to take a while to get that done. But if we could use some of this money, this one-time money, let's go on and get them done this summer. You know, that, and knock that off and not put that in the bonding, and that would give us almost $500,000 to put back into a big project. So
I
that
think
sounds really good. I'm glad to hear that.
I think when I met with Mr. Stoll, that was a project, the Lancaster Elementary needed to be bonded because the number was so large. And so maybe I misunderstood, but you keep talking about a pot of extra money. So Mr. Stoll, would you mind to share with the community just what that pot of extra one-time money is and how much is there?
Sure. I appreciate the fact that you call it one time, because that's what it is. It's like selling a piece of property. You can make some nice money selling property, you just don't get to sell it again. And so that's kind of where we are. We have some ESSER money that was set aside specifically for construction. We would never use it as ESSER money for construction because that would put prevailing wages at the federal level. We don't want to do that. We would shift that money into general fund and pay for some general fund pieces with that, and then take general fund money and offset that and be able to use that. Right now, it's about $411,000. We've also done indirect costs through ESSER dollars at $339,000 and $204,000. So we have that as one-time money that we could do. The board also sets right now at 16.85% contingency. The state requirement is 2%, and we never want to be there. But the board could make a decision to take some money out of contingency and make that available for construction. If you did that, if you dropped your contingency to about 12%, that would give you an additional $1 million to use. If you dropped it to 10%, it's about 1.5. So if you total those up, you're somewhere between 1.6 and $2 million to do some of the projects that we'd like to see done in some of the other locations. It is a one-time shot with that amount of money. So that's where we would be.
Okay. Would you go back to the other board members? And if you notice, are we talking about like what Mr. McQuarrie did? He just picked out some of the most, is that what you did?
Hmm.
Some of the important
I think he
things?
grouped all of the school things as one project, correct?
So you grouped them as one project.
Yes, that was one
And
project.
you kind of, did you choose piecemeal?
I just picked what I thought was the most critical things for us to do and tried to add a piece to finish the high school, one piece of the high school.
One piece of high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
With mine, I was also, as long as we're clarifying, I was looking at one thing. I'm probably the only board member sitting here that was on the board when we started our first big building project. And we did that project out of necessity. We ended up having to, one school building had been let go for so many years that it was beyond remodeling. So we built a new school at Paint Lick. One school had been let go at Camp Dick. We ended up tearing it down, rebuilding a new school at Camp Dick. And I know how traumatic that was with some of the people in the county. How well I know, 4 years. But I would hate to see us let, and I guess that's driving influence and remembering what things were. I had to take part of that statement back because David was here at that time. And we ended up having to tear down 3 school buildings and build new buildings because they hadn't been kept up. And that's why I'm on that. I hate to see us pass up doing things that need to be done and sailing a future board 20 years down the road having to replace every school we got except the high school. And that may be wrong thinking on my part, but that's the way I see it because I've been there.
One thing stands out to me too, Ms. Davis, you talked about this as a once in your lifetime opportunity. We're never going to be back at a place where we have this bonding potential ever again in your lifetime. So how do you, if we don't bond the maintenance on our other buildings, how do you propose that we're going to do that in the future if we're never going to be back to this point again?
I'm going in, and I realize this is not as much, but we do have some bonding potential every every 2 years. So we have some more coming up that would go just directly to the schools. And then some of these things that we put into the bonding that you all suggested, and I'm all for that, but we can do that a little bit at a time through the years. When you look at the number being 10.8 million, I think, Mike, what you suggested, to do all that at one time, that's a lot. But, according to what she suggested in 25, which would be July of 24, is 25 money, but it's July 1st, 24 is when it's available. We could have, and I'm gonna just cut it right down the middle, we might have $3 million. So then that money could be used for the schools. In the meantime, we're gonna be doing stuff. And then if we go on and use this two that we have right now, because you can't do it all at the same time anyway. You don't want it all, I don't think you would want it all at the same time. Then you would have that. So that would be 5 million. In 27, which would be July of 26, we could have, but we don't use that. But we're gonna have some more bonding potential. So and it's sort of interesting, Mike, that you say that we chose to build the new school payment because it was falling down. And I was in that building. It was a 1912 building, the original structure. The gym was a 68, I think 64 building. I can't really say it was falling down. I mean, it was antiquated, but it had a lot of good features. So I didn't really think of them, that the building was beyond repair. It was just beyond offering the best educational program you could for our students. And we were looking at some redistricting and different stuff. So it's interesting you say that because I didn't you were on the board.
Well,
I was
on the
living it
board
every
when we
day, and
went
I
to
didn't see
one of
it
the
going.
schools and we glazed the windows. Myself and another board member glazed the windows to keep the snow out from blowing through the cracks in the
And we'd have the
windows.
windows open and people.
And
calling
that's
reviews.
what I qualify as falling down.
Well, so
When you don't keep something repaired, then the
we do.
costs are so high.
I have another question that would help me make a good decision here, because eventually we are gonna have to narrow this down. Would you mind to scroll down and let me see that bottom figure that, so all of it, if we finish all of the projects at the high school, we're looking at 42.8. And what did they give us as our max bonding potential right now?
So last week's number was around 49.
49?
Depending on what is available at the time. Later this week, she sent something, I think what I showed y'all yesterday was in the 46 area.
So if we were to bond the 42.8, our bonding potential in future years goes down because we have that amount of debt. So that's what my question, it still brings me back to not having an answer to the question of, if we're never going to be back at this place with this bonding potential again, what are we going to do when we have major renovation needs at our elementary schools that have not, we know they're 30 years old and haven't been renovated. So it still brings me back to that question, because our bonding potential is not going to be adequate enough to repair these elementary schools when they begin to collapse and be in such disarray that we can't provide a good environment for our students. So again, you said never again in our lifetime will we be back at this place. So how are we gonna, I still don't hear an answer for how we're gonna do that. Because, it just isn't there.
We won't have that larger potential to do big construction, but we would have other bonding potential, not to that amount, but it would be spread out. And then we do things along each year. Every year, things are done in the buildings to try to maintain them. And they don't always have to be $1 million projects. This is just the way I have seen it. And I know how our schools have lasted the way they have because we've had a wonderful maintenance group. And I sort of know how the things go along through the years and how we take our turns and get things done. And you don't always have to bond some of these things that don't cost a lot. The HVAC, if you have to completely go in and redo the whole thing, that would be a big expense, yes. But, I've questioned that. Because there comes a point that lots of times you do have to go back and redo the HVAC. And I was sort of trying to, and this seems partial, but living in an old house, You know, I know what we had to do with an old boiler system to keep it running, and it was years old, but you keep working on it and you keep it going. You don't always just go in and start brand new. If you do, that will be a concern, but we will have some bonding potential. If we don't spend any, if I understand this right, if we don't spend anything, if we don't bond any more money to 29, which would be July the 1st of 28, we could have I'm say $14 million. So we would have that much, and I know that's several years from now, but we would have that much more money. But we could also spend it every so many years. This is, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, you could have, it depends on the interest, you could have anywhere between 9.2 and 14.8 million.
In FY 29, which starts July the 1st of 28.
So if we can clarify a couple things, all right? Number one, none of the conversations we're having today have any guarantees, all right? None of them. So there's no guarantee of what you can bond 3 months from now. There's no guarantee of what you're gonna have in 6 years. So I think everybody needs to be aware of that. I think anybody who suggests that there are these dollars in our coffers have a misunderstanding. These are dollars that are never gonna be available to us to spend. Nobody's gonna write us a check for $46 million and say, go spend it. We're gonna do this exactly like the majority of people do when they buy a home. They go to a bank, they get a loan, and over the next period of years, they pay it back. That's what we're doing here. That's what this conversation is. When we use the word bonding, there's sometimes some misunderstanding of what it is. So if you relate it to the idea of a loan, that's kind of what we're talking about here. When you have the numbers, so let's use the highest number that you see on the screen right now, roughly $43 million. If you have 46 million available, you still have 3 million that you could do something else with. That's a decision that you could make. You have the additional money that we showed a second ago, anywhere from 1.6 to $2 million. So you could be looking at, if you wanted to do it, potentially $5 million worth of work. Then, as you heard Brad say a few minutes ago, their hope is that when we go bid, that comes in less. One of the things that we asked Kelly to do and we asked Brad to do was to hopefully under-promise so that they could over-deliver. At this point, we've asked them to tell you that your potential bonding is here. Hopefully it's actually here. We've asked them to tell you your cost is here. Hopefully it's here. It's never going to be here. Okay? That's not what we're looking at. So you're not ever going to arrive at that spot. The decision that you're all making is the one that you're talking about. Is this a decision to finish a project that was begun, to make those facilities available to students over the next period of years, to the community over the next period of years? Or is your decision to go back and do something with existing facilities so that you ensure something with them? I think you can make a fair argument for either one of those things. I don't think this is an us against them scenario by any stretch of the imagination. It's a decision about how you would like to move forward with this. You can back up 2 years. I was not here 2 years ago. Your bonding potential at that point was $15, $16 million. For this district, for a long time, with maybe the exception of when you built the high school, it's always been around $8, $9, $10 million. So when Kelly shares with you that your bonding potential could go back up over the next few years, she's moving it back to where you have been. So it's not necessarily less, it's not necessarily more. It's kind of where we've been. Kelly has shared with each of you, I think, in meetings that you've had with her, that when she goes to bed at night, the one district that she doesn't worry about is Garrard County. That's amazing. I don't know what anybody else thinks about that, but that's amazing that we have had a community for the past 15 years who has contributed to this process an amount of money that they've never seen used. And you have the opportunity to do something with it and use it. I've said to you, one of the things that drives me around this process is that we had a state champion this year who was a state champion in spite of us, not because of us. And we should never let that happen again. We should never be at a spot where a kid who comes through our system doesn't have the opportunity to have the very best that they possibly can. And that, please hear me, that didn't say go build the high school. It's the whole process. Every place that they land should be the best. And we've said we want to do something in every one of our buildings. We don't want this to be something that's just about one location. But the ability to do what you're talking about, having the ability to do at the high school is pretty exceptional. And we're not talking just about athletics. We're talking about band, we're talking about facilities for the community, we're talking about adding instructional locations at the high school, because we recognize, I think, ahead of some people, that we're gonna struggle with being able to keep class sizes in the future always at 25 or 26-1. We've got to give Mr. Anderson and his staff some places where they can do some other things. But if we build this 90-room facility that we're talking about that would be part of the gym or just off of the gym, that also becomes a community center. We can have a board meeting there. You can have a magistrate meeting there. You can do all of those types of things. So we're not talking about building something that's isolated for one thing. Right now, when I think about what goes on at the high school on a daily basis, the fact that we could give them a full-size facility like a gym where they could go in and have seats that are retracted forward and they could go behind those things and be able to do some things they haven't been able to do in the past since I've been there, right? I think that what we're talking about there is providing something for students that they haven't ever had, not just athletes, students. And part of what you were arguing for a minute ago, not arguing, but advocating for a few minutes ago was doing things for our kids. I think our decisions today will impact kids. If it impacts adults, that's okay. But if it impacts kids, I think we're doing what we're supposed to do. And if we create environments, I think Mr. Hurt said a second ago, where people are proud to come here and be a part of that. Because if you think about it right now, we have some great facilities still. Think about what we would have for a middle school if we did this at the high school. I can't imagine a better middle school facility than any place in the state. If I'm wrong, you can tell me that, but I just can't imagine it. So you all have a tough decision to make. I'm happy to tell you I don't have a vote, right? I don't get to be the one who says that I made that vote. But I think what you have to do in this process is think about the whole context of it. Think about the fact that we've tried very, very hard to do this so that you can find a better solution. We didn't want to tell you that you could build this for 38 million and find out it took you 42. I'd rather it be 42, and if we get in at 41.9, yay. You know, if it's $100,000 savings, that's a good thing, as opposed to telling you it's one thing and it goes higher. Tough decision, right? I know what my decision is, but like I said, I don't get a vote. So.
Can I make a suggestion? I think we have our list, we just need to come back to it and fine tune it. So, I mean, we've got the high school projects there. That seems to have come out as the majority. That's where we're gonna start. So you've got the athletic complex, you've got your gym and the other athletic facilities. So should we do a 1, 2, 3 on those so we know which one comes first? And then move into these other projects that we all collectively seem to agree need to be done?
Okay.
I'm just a facilitator of getting it done.
Getting her done.
Let's just
Get
get
it
our
done.
list and move on. So he can, number 1 project is send out the bid for a BG1, and number 2.
Okay, before we do that, I want you to know, I agree with you all. I mean, I've struggled with this. In fact, one of my options was to do everything you all have shared and some more at all the schools that you listed. And I was basing what I was looking at on the 41 to 49 million. Then I got that from Kelly, and it came up, if we do the 25-year, wait a minute.
Yes,
am I on
that's
the right?
correct. You are.
Okay.
Tonight, it's 49, 1 tonight, it's 46, 7.
And it came down to 46.7, so that's scary.
Tonight, what you showed us is 49.
That's last week.
And so then hearing this discussion, and Brad Avey, can you help us here? Can a lot of these projects, could they be done piecemeal at each one of these schools?
Yeah, actually, I got it together on the ones I think, I don't want to get into that, but I think most of it can be done with the pot that we have. I think we can take care of those in-house. Most, if not all.
Okay, Well, as Dr. Lamb pointed out, it's quite obvious that 3 board members want to finish the high school.
Well, actually, you have 5 board members that want to finish the high school.
That's
So
correct.
that,
That's
that
correct.
was not,
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
neither of us said we didn't want to finish the high school. We just prioritized the pot a
Oh,
little
thank you.
differently.
Thank you, thank you.
I absolutely want to see the high school finish.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that, I did not know that. I was based on what your all priorities were. And
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to do that in that fashion in the first place. So,
Can I get an example here? And
Sure,
Brad,
go ahead.
correct me if I'm wrong on this. And these type of things would affect prices, like for instance, I talked about all the gym floors in the county. That was based on sanding them down and refinishing them off. Though, am I correct in that all of those could actually be sand screened and repainted and the actual sanding of it could be put off because they're in decent shape? Or I don't know, I'm asking you that question.
They need to be sanded down, repainted. But that, like I said, the number that I'm looking at, that looks seems really high. I think we can have that done. Bundle the gyms together, get it done way cheaper than your shows. You're gonna save money off of that just by doing it in-house.
Okay,
And that goes for a lot of the list.
Dr. Lamb, you were talking about prioritizing. Could we ask, I mean, if we are looking at everything at the high school and getting it done, from the architect standpoint, is there one of these is a good place to start? Instead of us suggesting to start, like with the soccer, track, football, band, is that the best place to start, or would we bet? I'm sorry. We got the size, I know, but we got the size, yes, that's a given.
If you look at what y'all talked about tonight, just taking your information and regurgitating to you, you've all agreed basically that you want to do the soccer, track, band, and football. You've all agreed with that. Yet in the site improvements, because we have to do the site improvements, if you're gonna do that, you have to do the site. That's $20 million. 4 out of 5 of you have said you'd like to do the baseball, softball. That's about an additional $2 million. So you're at $22 million and you've done everything but the gym. So if that's where you want to draw your line, that's an option. If you want to add the gym onto it, then we know that's another 16 plus 30%. So
I could
that
be
gets you
wrong,
back
but
up
I
to that
think
42.
there was at least 3 that wanted to include the gym.
Yes, I've got a 3 out of 5 on the gym. So, you know, trying to find that consensus. You've basically already said you want to spend $20 million in the high school as a consensus board. If that helps y'all get started on this list that you're trying to do.
So do I understand correctly that you'll do, the site prep I'm sorry, I wish I could articulate myself a little bit better, but we'll have a BG1 for the site prep, we'll have a BG1 for the athletic complex, and that's how you need us to prioritize the list for you to
Not
proceed, or
necessarily.
help me
Not necessarily.
understand what you need from us to move forward.
BG1 for, say, the high school, if how your priorities come out, and you say, we're gonna spend, like, Mr. McQuarrie said, we set a budget at 42 or $44 million, then you say, okay, we've got a budget of 40, whatever. Here's the top list of priorities. Then we'll come back to you and say, okay, based on that list of priorities, this is what you need to do first. This is what needs to happen second to get things moving. Again, inflation and interest rates are your enemy right now. So the quicker you can get the most of your money under bond in the biggest chunks, the better off you are from an inflation and interest rate standpoint.
So we really just need to break that list down into 2, A and B, or not break it down at all, just say we want to finish our high school. That's
Pretty
our
much, and that would
priority.
be a BG1.
Okay, so
That's
that's
why I didn't understand.
42,886,000. So what would, if we go to what is the top 2023 46.7 million? So what would you all like to add to that?
So it looked like we're talking about option 2, that was a 42,886, right? And then we're looking at what we want to add to that.
Mhm.
Well,
So
I
with
would add,
each-
I'm sorry, Ms. Davis, go ahead.
Just to say, so with each, so if we did so X amount at each school, it would be a different BG for each school?
Yes.
And you can have multiple BGs running at the exact same time.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
So then,
I would like,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to come back to the windows at Lancaster Elementary School.
Okay.
And I'd like to come back to the roof at CDR. And for me, those are two really important things that we need to do to sustain those schools.
Could we piecemeal those things in
So
to this?
But could we go on and do the windows? Because I'd like to get those windows done this summer, and the projection on that,
So let,
just the windows.
so let me just say something real quickly. Just because you say you want it done this
I
summer
know.
doesn't mean we'll get it done this summer. So I want everybody to kind of hold their breath for a second.
The
That's
supply
a
chain
nice,
is,
that's a nice plan, and,
Try.
but I think I understand that she's saying she would like to move that into some of these other dollars that
Yes.
we have, so that you get that hopefully even more quickly.
Yes, and not budget.
So
Right, so,
our budget number for the windows only at Lancaster with the soft cost is about 403,000.
yeah, we got it right here.
Okay, from
But that sure does cut the pot down for the other smaller projects that we said we wanted to do, like our security vestibules that are so important.
Well, but they aren't but 45,000. I had all that written down. Let's see, I got all of that.
The security vestibule here at this building is 209.3.
So,
39,000.
so if you'll let me play for a second here.
Sure.
One of the things that I tried to do was figure out what we might be able to do if we had this situation. So Dr. Lamb, I took your windows and the doors at Lancaster. I took the doors and hardware at Paint Lake, if that was something that we felt we needed to do. I did the security vestibule at the ATC. I did the security vestibules here at GEC, and I did a roof replacement at the bus garage if it wasn't gonna happen, and that was $1.1 million. So what I showed you a few minutes ago was 1.6 to $2 million. Then I took the idea, doesn't mean anybody would want to do it, but I took the idea of the roof replacement at CDR and the improvements that we think are necessary at Garrard Middle and added them to that previous 42, and it goes to 46.1.
Sound okay?
Well, maybe not. I'm just saying those are options. Those are things that you could do. So when you were talking about it cuts into, this is the amount that you would spend, which could leave you roughly 900,000 to do with something else. So if that meant you came back up here and you wanted to move the roof replacement CDR over to that amount, we probably could do that. We are still calculating those at the 30%, and that goes back to what Brad was saying, that that's probably a little high for what we're doing, so hopefully we would come in under all of that. Right? That Brad, not that Brad.
That Brad?
this Brad will always be conservative. He wants to impress.
And that's why we've used those numbers, is because we feel like that they're conservative. If we come out better, that's good.
So you're suggesting we move some of the middle school and the roof into the bonding category, and we pay out of the other pot of money that we've talked about?
Saying that's a possibility, yes.
We're just talking like we got all kinds of money. We got none of it yet,
So-
so just let that
so I
be.
think-
all week.
I think one of the things that I'm hearing too, I want to make sure that I'm hearing it correctly, is we can do these things, and as the money becomes available, because we don't necessarily use it someplace else, we can roll those projects in. And so for those things that you were talking about doing very, very quickly, like Ms. Davis was saying for this summer, we could look at using money that we currently have on hand to start those projects, and something that we couldn't roll in at that point, we would have the potential to do it in the bonding side of things.
And I think it's important to note, what you're deciding tonight still isn't spending the money. All you're doing is taking and not paying us to price 40 projects for you and paying us to price 5 projects for you. So you're saving, we've got to go through and figure out what those are going to cost you, show you what those numbers are, but that comes at a cost for our services, for their services. So we don't want you give you a list of 40, and here's definite prices on 40 different projects. You can do 5. We'll get you those prices. Once you get that number, then you can decide what list you want us to work on. Maybe we add some things to it, maybe we take some things off of it. Maybe you've already completed some things, because as Brad and I have talked before, when you involve us, it costs more. So if you can look at some of these little projects, you can tackle yourself, floors, even, going as far as we looked at how simple the vestibule at the ATC could be. That's something that maybe it's a district maintenance project, that y'all hired that out outside of our contracts, and that saves you significant. So you have some options to be able to do some of these projects in-house, taking them off the list without even affecting your bonding.
We can bid them instead of bonding. If we're using our money, we don't have to bond, we can bid. But this is all speculation. I think Mr. Stoll said that. Again, we're talking about money that we could have, but we might not get, and if, after we've been promised it, it could disappear. Because at the high school, existing high school, bonding potential went down, couldn't finish the project. That's why it hadn't been finished. When I first went on the board, I thought, we've got money coming in. We haven't got a whole lot of it. We've got this much bonding potential. But we got some bonds that are going to be paid off. And boy, did I get an education. When you pay that bond off at this school, that money isn't added back into what you can spend on a new project. It goes to the project that you have bonded to pay it off.
That's a very good point.
And you don't get that money until the whole project is paid off. So if we pay off $20 million worth of bonded, of what we've got bonded, the money that's cost us, that we've used to pay those separate ones off, won't come back into the bonding potential, won't come back into the coffers. It goes to the existing debt to pay it off quicker.
Yeah.
So that's the way I understood that to work. And I hope I'm correct on that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So that really does support, in theory, that we would not have bonding potential until this athletic complexes at the high school is paid off, to repair our buildings as they deteriorate.
We would have money coming in because of the 3 nickels.
Yeah,
And those 3 nickels,
but not in sufficient amount.
and if you count them as part of the bonding potential for the 42 million or whatever that money is.
So if I can direct you back to the screen, what I have on the screen right now is what Kelly shared with you last week, right? And she shows you the current expenditures that you have in paying debt. And you'll see that debt drops in 2029 because you finish paying for the high school. And you'll notice at that point, there is no debt, basically, okay? Very small amount of debt. So what she calculated for you all last week, when she gave you this, was the space between what you have and what you would be able to pay for. You were 100% right. So if a bond went out in July, we would not be paying as much toward that bond right now as we will be in 2029 or 2030. That's why we have them work for us and tell us what that looks like. They can calculate that. Notice also that the yellow line that is there, she took into consideration the as it stands right now, your third nickel sunsets as far as the equalization in 2038, and she calculated that in. That's why that line drops. So by doing that, she has taken into consideration those concern pieces that have come up today, whether we have the ability to pay for something and what happens in the future. So she has she's made the recommendation of what bonding potential you have based on your current debt, based on your future debt, and based on the reduction of the third nickel if that sunsetting occurs. Should that nickel ever be stabilized and not sunsetted, that yellow line jumps back up. Again, those are things we don't know. So she's calculated it on the more conservative side. The future bonding that she showed you, that I think all of you had a chance to see at some point, was based on 3.5% up to 5.5%. And she also showed you in the document that I shared with you that the average over the last 20 years is 6.4%. So even her high end was conservative. Again, pointing out to you, we're trying to make sure that any numbers that we give you, we hope are less than what they really will be when it comes to cost, and hope that they are more than what they would really be when it came to the interest rates. She calculated your interest rate, I believe, at 2.7%. So it's about 30 or 40 basis points higher than what it currently is. She doesn't have a guarantee that that will last. And again, that goes to the point of the sooner we move on this, the sooner you lock the dollars in, the lower that rate is likely to be. If we could bond it today, we would.
When the Fed raises the rate, as they are going to most certainly do in March, then the interest rate is going to go up. We don't know how much, but nobody knows how much it will go up, but it will go up.
We even know today that you bid and then you bond. But there is at least one school that is petitioning KDE right now to ask to bond before the bids, trying to lock rates in. So the fact that somebody's even asking that question suggests why it's important that we roll as quickly as we can on whatever we're doing. It doesn't matter which project, we want the project in at the lowest rate possible. That's a benefit to our community, a benefit to the board, benefit to the future students.
Okay, would you go back to okay, so with those additions to finishing the high school, where do we come up? 46?
42.8
No, I mean with everything added.
with everything added.
Yeah, with the,
Like that example that I showed you earlier about what you might could do if you added the others in.
maybe pick out some things that, that we wouldn't need, that need to be bonded or whatever.
So just as an example, I threw in here the roof replacement at CDR and some work at Garrard Middle, and that brought it to 46.
Okay. Y'all okay with that?
Do we have to tell you this piece tonight?
Do you have to? No. I mean, we're working on y'all's time schedule.
No, I'm sorry. If they tell you, for example, the high school,
Mhm.
and then they want to look at these others
We'll
and
keep
add those
adding.
projects
I
later,
just
we
need
can
to
do
see
that,
guidance.
correct?
Yeah.
So they're not locked into making all of the final decisions tonight.
No.
It would be the question of what's the biggest pieces of the puzzle so that you can get started with that, regardless of the size of the pieces of the puzzle.
Once we get started, we start seeing some real numbers, y'all can continue to.
Oh, good.
It's not a one and done. I think we just need some guidance to start, because we don't want to expend money for services that never get built. So I don't want to go and price flooring at Paint Leg, and y'all never do a flooring project at Paint Leg with us. You decide to do that yourself. So this is all this has been about, is give us a list of where we need to start, and we'll start working on the list, giving you prices as we go.
And so we can add things like
Add
these we
things,
just
you can
talked
take
about.
things off. It's just a matter of, we need to get started, so where do you want us to start?
Y'all understand? You okay with it? Give me a motion.
I make a motion that we complete the high school project with the door opened and make the additions to the other projects of interest to our school system, the
Okay.
kids.
Do you all understand the motion? Do I have a second? If I don't get a second, it'll die for lack of a second.
I don't understand the motion. You didn't put a money. We need a second to discuss it.
Yep.
Or can we just talk? I don't understand the motion, because you're just saying everything in high school, but you're not putting any kind of money to it.
We're completing the projects that we
It's
have
the
there.
So the
42.
42.
42,
$42,886,000.
But then you added, what else did you add to it? You said
Then-
then-
Keep a door
Yeah.
open to add projects that we're interested in adding to it.
If I don't get a second, it'll die for lack of a second.
So you're saying then we could add like another million for schools or another 2 million for other school projects? Okay. I understand it, right? I'll second.
No second?
I
She
second
said-
it. I said, I
Oh, I
understand
thought
what
you
he's
didn't
saying. I
understand
second it.
Okay, well, I was getting ready to kill it. All right, we've had a motion and
We
a
can
second.
discuss it more.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, let me know by lifted hand. All opposed with same sign. All right, it's 3-2. 2 board members voted nay. The motion is carried. All right, that's the last item on our agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Let's motion we adjourn.
Mr. McQuarrie made the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hurt second. All in favor, let me know by lifted hand. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for joining us on social media. We appreciate your patience.
So you all are-